You can't assume that the team members in legal and compliance actually know what you're trying to do, how you're trying to do it, even what the tools you're trying to do it with, right? There's an assumption out there that because social media is so common, everybody knows social media. Well, some people don't use it all, right? Some people use it, but for very specific things. So the assumption that your team already has this knowledge going in, to me, is something you really want to rethink.
Welcome to Transforming Medical Communications, a podcast by MedComms experts. We share medical communications insights and advice from the best and brightest in the industry to find out what they're doing to push our industry forward. Here's your host, Wesley Portegies.
Okay, so today I'm here with Guy Etchinson, who is our Director of Medical Communications Strategy, and Jana Krapp, who has been featured here on the Transforming Medical Communications channel before. She's our Senior Director of Digital Communication Strategy. Hey, guys.
Hey, Wesley.
Hi.
Great to be here.
Well, I'm very excited because we're going to talk about something important here, right? Legal and compliance. And yeah, for our audience here, Guy and Jana, they're very much involved with some of our most innovative work for the clients we have that are really looking to push the boundaries on medical communications. And as a result, of course, legal and compliance is an important factor to consider there. So today is really a short conversation around how can you approach that in medical affairs? If you want to do more innovative work, how can you avoid being in a situation where compliance is basically shutting everything down, right? I guess that's the no-nonsense way of describing this. Tell me a little bit more about situations where this happens and how could it have been avoided, perhaps?
So I would say it often happens with new tools and new approaches to using digital tools, social media or the website, things that have not been done before in a given company. And ways to sort of address it is, so the first thing, there's the research. Who else is doing it and what are they doing and how have they done it? There's the idea of getting to understand your legal compliance team and understanding what their concerns might be in advance of any conversation so that you can address those points. There's the potential of doing a concept review. So that's, you don't actually do the work, but you come in with the concept of what you want to do. You think in advance of some of the questions they might have, and then you answer those questions in that discussion so that you can get approval to move forward with the next step, which would be to create the content, build the platform, etc.
And I think throughout all of that, of course, we're biased, but I would say lean on your agency partner. Your agency is there. They're coming with these innovative formats. They have the experience, and lean on them because they will have been in this situation before and they will know what those thorny questions are going to be. They'll know the roadblocks that legal and compliance will come up with. And they'll also have then the experience of navigating them, like Jana says, with a concept review, heads up really early as possible in the process. It's easy to sort of bury your head in the sand and try and think, we'll tackle that later. Let's just get started on developing it. But early on, speak to your colleagues, get that concept review in, and then you know upfront what objections might come up and get your agency partner there along to the call.
Jana, you were mentioning what do other companies do in the industry? And then Guy, you were saying like, hey, bring your agency partner in as a real partner. And I think the advantage of doing that mainly is that because as an agency, you work with most of the companies, right? So you see all these different things that are being done. And we're often having these conversations, right? Where we know like, oh, well, okay, this might be a challenge, but then at the same time, I could just by heart tell you about 5 other companies that have just done this. So it's absolutely possible. There's no clear decision-making flow that tells you you can't or you can do it, right? So you need to kind of go by measuring the risk. And as a result, a lot has to do with how the industry is moving forward as a whole. And therefore, if more companies do something, it becomes kind of more acceptable. And I think that's definitely an interesting part of how to drive innovation in this industry. Are there any success stories you could share on exceptional collaborations between MedComms teams and their compliance partners?
So before we go into that, just familiarity with content and confidence and comfort in what is being proposed. And so thinking about modular content, so pieces of content that are put together to create something. And if you get a couple of those pieces of modular content through legal review and they are approved, then when they see them again, there's comfort and there's familiarity with those pieces of content. and maybe you add something additional, but they already know the majority of what is coming through legal compliance.
How about you, Guy?
I like that. That's the sort of the stepping stone approach. Sometimes you do have a format that you haven't tried it before. Some of our facilitated storytelling decks have been a sticky point. And I would just say, take that enthusiasm you had at the beginning when you signed and you put in place your project agreement, and make sure you champion your piece through as well. You are the champion for it. Don't let it just go to the concept review and, oh, well, they'll see how it goes. Because if nobody's going to stand up for it, then it will get turned down. But so often sometimes often a fear, concerns, there can be just a misunderstanding between what you're actually intending to do with the content. This feeling that, oh gosh, that's going to go everywhere. Or maybe you would love to put it everywhere. But in the stepping stone model, as Jana mentioned, you could go and add in some guardrails for it to reassure them and just say, yep, we'll use it only in reactive settings or proactive. There's almost always a technical solution, I think. It's just a question of figuring out and not watering down, not diluting more than necessary. But sometimes, you can adapt and compromise it and reach a consensus.
I really like that, because I think often we look at the stakeholder team, the MedComms team, typically in the legal team as like two opposites, right? So the MedComms team wants to do something and the legal team is telling them they can't, right? That is the typical, maybe a little bit exaggerated, but that's how we look at these things. So how do you bring that situation to something where you actually partner and collaborate? I just haven't seen a lot of teams being able to communicate and partner in that kind of way, just because where they're coming from. And I think the bridge between the two is exactly what you said. It is like being more clear about the intent. And as you both know, we've booked quite some success, for instance, with even if we send things in for MLR review, by simply adding like a cover sheet with some information for the reviewers. Like, hey, this is what this is. This is how it's going to be used. This is what the intent of this resource actually is. So please review it with that in mind, right? Which made a huge difference, because often we just drop something on their desk and say, here's a piece, please approve. And there's really no context and no understanding of what the intention of it is. So we can't really blame them either for sometimes coming across like they're shutting things down, right? It's like, it's our job to help them understand what we're trying to achieve. And it is, I think, also a mindset shift that we need to make in understanding that what they do is simply managing the legal risk for the organization. And often they have a view on the bigger picture that we can't even see just ourselves, because they work across the organization.
Yeah, and to that point, when they work so widely across the organization, they're seeing your content and it's out of context. Where's that actually going to sit? So having that guidance in the document up front, or maybe it's demoing how it would be used. If that's an interactive piece, record a short video clip, voice it over and share it with them. Something that can just give them that contextualization of where it fits within the content landscape and how its intended use. Because when you're viewing a flat PDF or a mock-up version, it's sometimes really hard to think. But when you're so close to the content, you can get lost in that trap of assuming, it's clear and I put it in the Viva fields, or it must be obvious where it's going to be used.
Yeah, this is actually cool. And I really like the example too. And it reminds me of something long in the past when we came up with these animated publication summaries for the first time, right? Which is probably about 10 years ago. And a lot of people had told me, like, Wesley, that don't even get into it. Like, we tried. And indeed, like, we ran into that issue initially. And the solution was to create like a 3-column table where it would show what is actually narrated in the animation, what is shown in the animation visually, and how it ties back into the original manuscript. So since then, like, not just us, but across many agencies, we've been producing these animated publication summaries all along without any trouble actually getting them approved. So you're completely right. And I love the idea around creating a quick video and with an explanation. And I think it's so funny that we all work in communications, but we tend to forget to actually communicate internally.
So I think social media is another great example. Social media can be scary, right? There's many different platforms. There's a lot of things happening on the different platforms, but we have definitely seen success in very carefully selecting the platform that you want to focus on for that first compliance review, that first effort to, launch a channel. And often that channel might be LinkedIn, because overall there's a little bit more comfort with LinkedIn over some of the other channels. And then, Guy, you talked a little bit about this, but just guardrails. So making it very clear the type of content that will be posted to these channels, that it's only going to be approved content, that every piece of content goes through review. It's going to be a disease state education. It's got to be related to congresses, awareness days, very clear cut things that are low risk. And then there's also we won't have comments enabled. So nobody can comment on this post. It's just sharing information.
Yeah. So again, it's really about how to do it instead of are we doing this or not?
Is MedComms evolving faster than your team can keep up? You're not alone, and you don't have to navigate it alone. Wesley Portegies, host of Transforming Medical Communications, is offering a limited number of free 30-minute consultancy sessions for medical affairs professionals. Whether it's medical communications, field medical, or medical affairs training, these sessions provide an opportunity to address your real-world challenges, pressure test ideas, and walk away with practical strategic insight for your team. No fluff, just strategy. Follow the on-screen link or in the show notes to book your free session now.
I would like people listening to this short episode here to maybe walk away with some tips and tricks. I will break the ice here. The first one would be on partnership with your legal team. And it's a little bit of a different view on that I think we typically have, which is they are your partners in actually coming up with something innovative that then even fits within the legal confines. And how you actually demonstrate that partnership is to reach out to them early before you even start developing your concept and tell them about what you're planning to do and that you will be in touch with some additional information and would like their perspective on it. And I think a lot of people will actually be very open and welcoming to hearing these plans. And they will definitely give their input on a few things that might create some barriers and some challenges to overcome. But that is the way to ultimately get to an innovation in medical communications that can also be approved. So that will be my number one here, which is consider them partners. And if you consider them partners, treat them like partners too. How about you guys?
I would say sort of ties into the partnership, but education, right? You can't assume that the team members in legal and compliance actually know what you're trying to do, how you're trying to do it, even what the tools you're trying to do it with, right? There's an assumption out there that because social media is so common, everybody knows social media. Well, some people don't use it all, right? Some people use it, but for very specific things. Make sure you go in with the intent from that first conversation that Wesley mentioned, the intent to educate and make sure they understand your goals, what you're trying to do, and how you're trying to do it.
That's a great one. Thanks, Jenna.
My addition to this would be through then the process from that very first conversation to your piece being approved for external use and being rolled out is a line on your SOW that says MLR process approval with your agency. That is your golden ticket. And that's not just a little bit at the bottom, they're going to pop the Viva job in there and tag a few things and send it off into the ether. No, they are there for you to consult with, to ask at any point through that process and to bring along as well. Bring them to the table and get them to help you because they have that wealth of experience of dealing with similar situations. And even if it's not with that specific piece, they know how other companies operate internally as well and what some arguments have worked well or not to overcome these hurdles. So really involving them throughout that whole process and never just give up, but they are your guide, your Sherpa through the whole process to the end. Because sometimes it's right at the end that, some spanner comes up because somebody's decided, the standard reviewer's on holiday and there's a weird comment in there. Pass it over to your agency team, get them to tackle those things or implement the changes that are needed as well to get it through. Never give up on it as well, because the saddest thing is to see anything that's had that much effort in sort of die before it crosses the finish line.
Our intent is to educate HCPs on great new science and technologies that will ultimately benefit patients. And, as an industry, I feel we're behind on the technology we use, the ways we communicate. It's just not very aligned with the modern way of consuming information anymore. And the only way how we get there is to exactly do that, not give up. Sometimes it might be a little harder, a harder route, but it's definitely worth it. So Well, this was amazing. I really enjoyed talking about this topic with you both. Thank you for sharing your views, and let's do some more innovation.
Great. Thanks for having me here.
Thank you. It's great to discuss.
I'm glad to have you.
Transforming Medical Communications is brought to you by MedComms experts. To find out more about MedComms experts and how we create some of the most cutting-edge medical communications programs anywhere in the world, visit www.medcoms-experts.com. And then make sure to search for Transforming Medical Communications in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Make sure to click subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at MedComms Experts, thanks for listening.